Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here today because we are jumping right in to explore the brilliant, sometimes kind of quirky, and deeply influential minds that literally built our modern digital world. We're going to be looking through the eyes of two major players here. Elon Musk, a guy who obviously has his hands in everything from space travel to social media, and Aravind Srinivas, the brilliant mind behind Perplexity AI. By looking at how these two leaders view the foundations of the internet, product design, and the wild future of artificial intelligence, we are going to completely change how you view the apps and platforms you use every single day.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because this quote from Elon Musk, it completely reorients how we look at history. Traditionally, when we study history, we look at the great man theory. We talk about kings, queens, presidents, and politicians. But Musk argues that the true architects of civilization, the ones who actually deal the cards that the rest of humanity plays with, are the technologists. Whether it's the discovery of fire, the invention of electricity, the cotton gin, the iPhone, or the atom bomb, technologists create the step changes in civilization. Politicians and everyday citizens? Well, we're essentially just playing the hands we're dealt by those innovations. Section 1. The human nervous system. This brings us to the macro perspective of what these tech founders have actually built over the last few decades. Musk paints this incredible timeline for us to really visualize this. Think about the 1440s with the Gutenberg press. Before that, even if you had a massive thirst for knowledge, you were pretty much out of luck, right? Books were just way too rare. Fast forward to the 1980s, and information still largely traveled by osmosis, word of mouth, or maybe a phone call. It was incredibly localized. But today, with the internet, it's as if humanity as a whole has grown a collective nervous system. Musk points out that today, someone sitting in the middle of the Amazon jungle with a satellite terminal has instant access to more information than the President of the United States had in 1980. Any single part of humanity now has access to almost all the information of humanity. It's mind-blowing. Section 2. Academics versus dropouts. So, who exactly are the people coding this vast nervous system? Let's bring in Aravind Srinivas's insights to find out.
Srinivas highlights a stark, super fascinating contrast in the tech world. On one side, you have the dropouts. Think Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Their underlying philosophy was highly entrepreneurial from day one. Move incredibly fast, build a compelling product, and build a massive company around it. But on the flip side, you have the academics, specifically Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin. These guys were Stanford PhDs. Their approach wasn't initially about building a marketing team or a massive business structure. It was about doing deeply grounded research and building core infrastructure. Actually, during the dot-com bust, while everyone else was failing, Page had the contrarian insight to scoop up available PhDs at a discount just to build unbeatable core tech.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these academic roots led Page and Brin to completely flip the table on traditional search engines. At the time, every other search engine was doing the exact same thing, looking at text-based similarity. So if you search for a word, the engine looked for pages that used that word the most. Makes sense, right? But Google completely ignored the text as the primary signal. Instead, they looked at the link structure. Who is actually linking to whom?
And where did this genius idea come from? Directly from their academic backgrounds. In academia, the ultimate dopamine hit is seeing your research paper cited by other scholars. The more a paper is cited by highly respected papers, well, the more valuable it is. Page and Brin literally took the academic citation graph and applied it to the entire internet. A link was a citation. This single academic insight provided a ranking signal so powerful that it absolutely obliterated the competition, and it directly inspired how companies like Perplexity rank truth and relevance today.
Section 3. The user is never wrong. So, let's look at how this academic obsession with underlying infrastructure cascaded down into a micro-level obsession with product design. We are talking about an obsessive, almost unreasonable focus on reducing latency. When Google was launching Chrome, Larry Page intentionally tested the browser on terrible old Windows laptops. His logic? If it works blazingly fast on a crappy laptop, it's going to feel like pure magic on a good one. Srinivas applies this today by constantly testing Perplexity on terrible airplane Wi-Fi. They focus on these tiny micro details, making sure your cursor is instantly ready in the search bar so you don't even have to click or auto-scroll into the bottom of an answer. Rapidly reducing these micro frustrations creates a user experience that is incredibly addicting.
And all of this stems from one profound design philosophy championed by Srinivas. The user is never wrong. Think about how powerful that is. If your mom types a messy, grammatically incorrect query into a search bar and doesn't get the right answer, a bad designer blames the user for not prompt engineering correctly. Actually, scratch that. A great designer blames the product. The product must seamlessly understand human intent despite our typos, despite our laziness, and despite our poor phrasing.
So the crucial point is this. The absolute magic of a great product is letting the user be lazy. Expecting everyone to become an expert prompt engineer is just a flawed long-term strategy because, hey, people are naturally curious, but we aren't always great at articulating that curiosity into perfect questions. The ultimate goal of a tech product is to minimize the time and effort it takes to get an answer, automatically predicting the user's intent and doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
Section 4. Protecting the town square. Now let's transition from the micro level of product design back to the macro societal impact. Because when these deeply optimized platforms scale, they become the host of our global conversations.
250 million. That is the massive number of people who spend an average of half an hour every single day on X, formerly Twitter. It represents over 120 million user hours daily. And as Musk points out, these aren't just any users, they tend to be highly influential people who read a lot and drive current events. The stakes of managing this specific slice of humanity's nervous system are literally unimaginably high.
Which brings us to the analytical logic path behind Musk's monumental decision to acquire the platform. Impartially speaking, if we just look at his stated logic, Musk observed what he believed to be government-driven censorship, something later highlighted in the release of the Twitter files. He identified what he viewed as cultural trends moving away from meritocracy. So his stated motivation for spending billions wasn't just a simple business investment, but a move to acquire the platform to ensure a constitutionally aligned, open digital town square where a really wide range of viewpoints could be seen.
And this brilliantly illustrates Musk's broader philosophical warnings about what he terms the woke mind virus. It's fascinating to just look at his structural reasoning here. He argues that this ideology pushes for the suppression of free speech and promotes cancel culture, where even questioning the narrative is deemed bad. He cites examples of historical education where complex founding figures like George Washington are reduced in schools to nothing more than their darkest flaws, stripping away all nuance. For Musk, protecting the First Amendment, especially speech you might completely disagree with, is the primary defense mechanism against civilizational decline.
Section 5. Regulating the AI overlords. Because whether it's managing speech or optimizing search algorithms, all of these founders are currently looking toward the exact same horizon, the next massive evolution of humanity's nervous system.
Let's move to how this builds into the ultimate high-stakes game. Musk, who was sounding the alarm on AI a decade before it was mainstream, recently had urgent conversations in Congress with leaders like Chuck Schumer. The dynamic is simple but terrifying. Unregulated AI means massive corporations competing for profit, inevitably cutting corners on safety. Regulated AI, which Musk is actively pleading for, means establishing a government referee. Just like we oversee aircraft, cars, and food to protect the public from danger, Musk argues we desperately need an oversight body to ensure AI doesn't become an uncontainable threat to the public.
And the timeline for this is moving with cinematic gravity. 2029. That is the year renowned futurist Ray Kurzweil predicts we will achieve artificial general intelligence, essentially digital superintelligence. While some founders view this as a glorious tool to figure out human longevity and solve all our problems, leaders like Musk and historically Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates view this rapid, unchecked acceleration with severe caution. They fear that the most ironic outcome, the very tools we built to serve us becoming our overlords, might just be the most likely.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we are left to ponder. We've seen how the academic rigor of founders like Page and Brin shaped the architecture of our digital world, and how the aggressive, move-fast mentality of the dropouts built massive empires. We've seen how their obsession with user design has effectively wired our global nervous system together. But as we accelerate toward 2029, will the next chapter of human history be defined by the academics who structure it, the dropouts who scale it, or will the cards ultimately be dealt by the AI itself? It's a fascinating reality we're all playing a part in. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.